I'm the Director of Patient and Family Advocacy for the Brain Recovery Project. Thrilled to see all of you here today. I'm really excited about our speaker, Monica. I think one of us found Jennie, and I was thrilled when I started looking into her organization and what they do, that they have this whole transition university as part of their Parent Training and Information Center, and they've done multiple books on transition. This was a very lucky find, so I'm thrilled to have her. Jennie is the Transition University Coordinator for the Utah Parent Center. She's from Layton, Utah, and holds degrees from Weber State and Southern Utah University. She's a philanthropist at heart and enjoys trying to make a difference in the lives of others through connection and identifying available resources. 2 decades of working in the disability community and raising a 22-year-old son with multiple disabilities have taught Jennie the critical need for support services and advocacy for families impacted by disabilities. In addition to Transition University, Jennie has served as a UPC parent advocate, board member, and chair, as well as the development officer. She also served for a decade as the executive director for Duplication Cares, a global nonprofit supporting those with the rare chromosome duplication 7q11, do I say .23? Got it, all right. Duplication. When Jennie is not advocating for marginalized communities, she enjoys times with her family at the beach, watching movies, and anything chocolate. Right up my alley. So welcome, Jennie.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm always thirsty, so pardon me while I get a drink here. Okay, I'm happy to be here. Like she said, I'm a mom of Jackson, who's 22 years old, and he'll be 22 in August. And we were on a kind of a road less traveled. We had to really fight our way through to find resources for him because of his rare chromosome duplication. When he was diagnosed, he was the first one in our state and the 11th in the world. And so when you guys feel like you are really trying to find the thing that will help your child, I totally get it. It's a journey, and it's a path where you have to try to find these resources. And that's what Transition University is. In the state of Utah, transition has become something that we're all really passionate about through all of our statewide organizations, our government agencies, and our nonprofits. And so through this grant, funded by the Utah Developmental Disabilities Council, we've been able to assemble this curriculum. And you won't have my slides in your schedule to download, but I can get those to Audrey after. But what you do have are 2 really powerful resources. The first is this booklet. This is the Successful Transitions for Youth, our youth booklet. Do you have one? Did I give you one? Do you? Okay. Does everybody have one? Every family? Okay. And this is kind of a guidebook for youth, and then also for youth and their parents. And when I use this with my son, I can go through each section. Every section is color-coded. And you'll see on the cover page right here, it breaks it down into categories. So you can look at education, you can look at safety for the home, healthy living, all of these different areas of life that are so important and so vital to transition. And it's all color-coded throughout the book, so it's easy to find. But I can go through there with him and just do the purple section and just do worksheets in the purple section that help him identify some of the things that we're going to talk about today. The other link that is really important for parents that are in this group, and also for your youth as they get older and more interested in these topics, is the Choices book link. A lot of the information that's being talked about next door with Mary, she helped us create that Choices book, and it covers everything like power of attorney, guardianship, conservatorship. If we have time at the end, I have a few slides on those topics, but it's also things like Advanced Healthcare Directive, HIPAA release, self-determination, a lot of what we talk about today, except it goes into more depth. So make sure and take a look at that link so that you can have both of those resources. Okay, well, we'll just jump right in. Again, I'm Jennie Dopp, and just Google Utah Parent Center if you ever want to reach out to me and you don't have my contact information. We're the first thing that comes up on Google. These are the topics we're going to try to talk about today. This is a big order. When I talked about this with Audrey and we developed the course curriculum for this class, I thought, oh gosh, how are we going to cover all these topics? But so we're going to touch a little bit on each of these areas, and I want you just to stop me if you have a question that I can answer right then. We won't be able to talk about like a specific scenario, but I'd be happy to stay after and talk about it with you if you have questions. And Audrey, let me have you give her a book. Or Aubrey. the history of disability rights, and you think, why are we going to talk about that in this class? But really, you have to understand where the disability world was in order to understand where we are now and how you are going to move forward navigating this world with your disability. And because you're a powerful force for good, you have a lot of opportunities to be your own self-advocate and to speak up and talk about the things that you need in your life to be successful. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, advocacy, how you can be your own self-advocate, and also as a parent, you can be an advocate for your child. How many of you know these words? Self-determination. Raise your hand if you know these. Oh, yay, good. Okay, person-centered planning and charting the life course. Okay, we have a few master course people in here. Life after high school, what do you do? How do you navigate this once that school bus stops coming? Daily life, safety, and then also employment. Okay, so the disability rights movement. A long time ago, people were not even able to have, a wheelchair ramp in a building, or they weren't able to keep a job because people wouldn't make accommodations for them. And so there were these powerful, brave, courageous people that were able to help convey the need for disability rights. And so we thought that these videos were embedded, but they're not. So you guys are going to have to bear with me as we navigate this. And can you guys hear it? Let me see if I can turn on my
Growing
sound.
up, we would talk about the American dream and work hard, study hard, and you could move forward. But if you had a disability, working hard and study hard didn't really mean you'd get anything.
I went and applied for a daycare job to be a teacher's assistant. The teachers liked me, and then they found out that I had been in special ed, and all of a sudden the job was no longer available.
My older brother became deaf at a young age. I think he was maybe 6 years old. His life was circumscribed by people saying, well, you're deaf, so you can't do this, you can't do that. They told him he could be one of three things. He could be a baker, a shoe cobbler, or a printer's assistant. He said, I don't want to be any of that. They said, okay, now you're a baker.
Ed just had a way of inspiring people to be what they needed to be. But he was a scared kid going off to college. It was just this terrifying idea, they're all going to look at me. And then he realized they could look at him and he could be a star. Of course, it opened the doors to people who had kids with disabilities.
I wanted to be a teacher. My written, oral, and medical exam all were given in inaccessible buildings, and my friends carried me up and down the steps. And then I was failed on my medical exam because I couldn't walk, and I really couldn't let it drop. Friends of mine and I decided that what we would do is we would set up this group.
I got a flyer in Braille, which I'd never received before. It said something like, fight for your civil rights.
That was really the beginning of advocacy.
I never knew that there was such thing as, being proud of being a disabled person.
It was everybody really beginning to demand respect and the right to be able to do with their life what other people do and don't have to think about.
This one person said to me one day, we got left out. I said, left out of what? They said, the Civil Rights Act. You can't discriminate against people of color or women or sex or national origin. But disability, perfectly legal. I became aware then of a movement to have a broad civil rights bill to cover all people with disabilities. We had this wonderful point in time when we had the President of the United States strongly in back of it.
We will not tolerate discrimination in America. I now lift my pen to sign this Americans with Disability Act and say, let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down.
The biggest impact of
I'm gonna stop
ADA
it
has
right
been
there.
the change in the physical environment. Everything from curb cups to widened doors to seating in theaters.
Buses are accessible. It means that people can actually get to their job. There's consciousness around accessible restrooms and hotel room doors.
It has spawned
Guys, it's not stopping.
bunch of new technology.
Portable respirators
It's
came
gonna-
out, motorized wheelchairs came out.
Technology has transformed the lives of deaf individuals
There we
like
go.
myself.
For those
Sorry.
with intellectual developmental disabilities.
Okay. So this was an important piece of our history, and one that we all need to realize is available to us, because a lot of times I've heard people say, well, I can get a job, but I can't keep it because they won't work with me. And so, but then they don't want to talk about the needs that they have for their job, or some of the accommodations that they need. Oh, we just lost our video. There we go. I'm bumping wires here, you guys. Okay, I'll be careful. And so when we're talking about these topics today, specifically maybe education or employment, it's important to keep this in mind. So what are you going to do with this knowledge? What do you need to learn about your rights as a self-advocate with disabilities that you can use in your life to get the services that you need? And our work isn't done. I know in the state of Utah, we're working with our legislature to make sure that they're informed about the needs of people with disabilities so that more funding can be allocated to things like Medicaid or to disability programs. In the state of Utah, it's called DSPD, the Division of Services for People with Disabilities. Each of you have your own support systems in your state, but you need to work together to make sure these systems are funded so that your job programs can be better funded, so that the day programs can be better funded, depending on what level of support that you need in your life. One other quick thing that we could talk about is making sure that you're registered to vote, and that when you turn 18, you can actually in Utah get registered when you're 17 or 16, and then when you're 18, it kicks in. But getting registered to vote is an important right for people with disabilities to have. Okay, self-advocacy. So there's self-advocacy is when you're going to advocate for yourself as a parent, you're advocating for your child, and there's a variety of areas where you can advocate, whether it's in school or in the community, and you can learn how to speak up for yourself and how to express yourself. How many of you have ever had an opportunity where you could really speak up and feel like you were heard? Some of the self-advocates. So if you're a self-advocate in the room, have you had an experience where you've been able to really speak up for yourself and have your wishes known, either to your parents or teachers? Or have there been times where you've wanted to do that, but you didn't feel like you could speak up? Maybe, sometimes. This can be something like, deciding where you go for dinner or deciding what clothes you wear. It can be helping to decide what classes you take in school. It can be a program like I know my son Jackson, he worked at Smith's grocery store. It's like one of the big chains in Utah, and he did not like that work program. And so he found a different work program, and now he works at Lagoon, which is our amusement park here in Utah, and also McDonald's, and he loves it. I would not have chosen McDonald's or Lagoon. I think I would have rather worked at the grocery store, but he loves it, and he was able to be an advocate for himself in his own life. Okay, so in your book, in the purple section, there's a couple of worksheets that you might want to flip through maybe tonight or when you get home, but it helps you figure out who you are as your own person and your own self-advocate. What's special about you? What do you excel at? What do you like to do? Do you love video games? Do you love swimming? Do you love going to the park? Like, what is it that you love in your life? Maybe you like chocolate like me and you would love to work in like a bakery or something like that. Figure out what it is that you like about yourself. What are you good at? What's something that you're interested in? And those types of, when you write it down, it kind of helps you brainstorm. And as you do it with your friends or your parents, it can help you identify new areas. This page is a little bit harder to see, but this is just a sample of one of the pages in the book. And it helps you figure out your own self-awareness, maybe where you need to disclose your disability, maybe some of the accommodations you need. Maybe it's hard for you, like with my son, he has a speech challenge where he can understand what you're saying, but it's hard for him to articulate or speak the words. And so he has to have extra time to think about it. So that might be one of the accommodations that he would identify with me when I go through this book with him, that he could tell his manager at McDonald's, I understand what you're saying, but I need you to wait for a minute before I respond, before you expect me to reply back to you. Okay, self-determination. Some of you raised your hand and you told me that you knew what this was. This is so important, and it's such a cool thing because, in my situation, I've been my son's caregiver for his whole life. And I've figured out what we do, where we go, which doctor we see. And as he's getting older, he's learning to have more of a voice. And so I try to ask him, because it's hard as a parent, for the parents that are in here, maybe you can identify, when do you release that control? When do you let them have a voice? And as a self-advocate, you need to learn to speak up and say, Mom, I don't feel good about that. Like, I really didn't like that doctor. Could we look around and look for somebody else? And maybe that's the only specialist in your state, which was our case for a lot of things in Utah. But it's just learning to have a voice and expressing the opinions that you have. What opportunities would you like? What skills do you have? What are your abilities, your attitudes, and your choices? Where do you want to be in 5 years? So I went around the room before and I tried to talk to most everyone. We had some 14-year-olds, 15, was there 17? I can't remember. How old are you guys over here? Was it 15? And okay, so think about 5 years from now. So if you're 15, 20, what do you want to be doing when you're 20? Like, you might be done with high school, you might have fulfilled your graduation credits and have your diploma, and you might be like my son in in a post-high program where he gets to stay till he's 22. You might be working. Do you still want to live with Mom? Would you rather live in like an apartment with other people with disabilities? Okay, so if those are your choices, and after high school, do you want to go, like we have a lot of tech programs here, like the Davis Technology College or the Dixie Technology College. Are you able to get into one of those technical programs, or do you want to go to something like what we have in our state with Utah State University? It's called Aggies Elevated, and it's a college program specifically for people with disabilities. Is that your goal? Does that sound too overwhelming and challenging? So maybe let's take a step back and think, what skills do I need to put in place if I really want to go to the college program? Or maybe you're super great at STEM, like math and science, and you really want to be involved in some sort of a science program. What do we need to do right now to get some things in place? So I want you to, as we talk about these things, think about what's coming and where do you want to be. These are a couple of types of plans. All of these are talked about in the book, but your IEP, your vocational rehab plan, and then also the individual plan for employment. DSPD, that's our disability organization here in Utah, but every state has one. So what's the program in your state? What plans do they have available to you? Are you funded through that program? Do you need to get on the waiting list for services? What can you do to tap into the resources in your state to get these employment services? Person-centered planning. There's a couple of things that we need to realize when you're building a plan for these services. There's your individual plan. There's you in the middle as the self-advocate. Who's your support group? You've got your parents, your family, your friends, your neighbors, social groups, maybe your church group or community group. And then there's a different group. There's you, and then there's all of your services that help support you and help you achieve the goals to success in your life. So you've got your support coordinator with your disability organization in your state. Maybe you have staff. Maybe you're already funded through your disability program and you have aides that come in and help you. Maybe you have a specialized team of doctors and nurses and support staff and coordinators and therapists. Or your vocational rehab, VR. Has anybody in this room signed up for VR yet? Vocational rehab? One back there. Do you have a job coach? Or are they kind of helping you think about what services you want? What's your experience with VR?
Yeah, she's going into an internship.
Awesome.
In the fall, and we just did the paperwork for VR, and she has a good job coach.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a big step. Okay, so if you're struggling to think about some of these things that I'm talking about, like where you want to be in 5 years, there's this really great tool. It's called Charting the Life Course. Again, this is in the book. I believe it's in the green section, and it will talk about person-centered planning, self-determination, and charting the life course. But they're free worksheets. You just go on their website, and you can download these free and accessible worksheets, and fill them out. This is an example of one of the worksheets. There's several. I mean, it's kind of a rabbit hole of all these different worksheets that will really help you zoom in on the strengths and the path for your child or for yourself. There's an integrated support star, and it helps break it down. Okay, what's your personal issues, your environmental? What assistance do you still need? What support? What's needs-based? What is specific to your disability? What are some things you need to be aware of? It really breaks it down for all of these different areas. And then it helps you map out your strengths, your relationships, what technology you could use, what is eligibility specific, meaning Medicaid or SSI. As we get into this presentation, by way of information, how many of you are funded through Medicaid or SSI? So a few people are familiar with it. Okay, we'll just touch base on that so you can realize that that's a tool for you as well. And if you're having trouble, you can use this worksheet. I can decide these things with no extra support. I'm able to do that. I need support with my decision for these things, and I need somebody to decide that for me. So for instance, my son is not able to make choices about his medical care, and so I need to help him with that. But he can make his choices about employment or his schedule or how he spends his time, or in a lot of cases, how he spends his money. He just pockets that money and uses it for Slurpees and video games, and it's awesome for him. Person-centered planning, this is a great resource. If you're not familiar with person-centered planning, you can go on the Utah Parent Center website and download this, and a lot of the information will be specific to you, not just Utah. If that sounds totally overwhelming, you don't want to deal with a star, you don't want to deal with a chart, you can use this tool. It's a community mapping tool, and that's also in your booklet. You would put yourself in the center, and then you would think about all the people around you who are able to help you make these decisions. And then you'll do it again, and the second one is like for relationships, and the third one is your professional supports. And then when you're all done, you would see how all of these things fit together. So all of this is in your book. IEP meetings are a great place for you to start using some of these tools of self-advocacy. And you think, okay, I thought this class was about employment. Well, we have to start at the beginning to get where we're going. And when you have an IEP in school, part of your school's responsibilities that's mandated by the federal government is to help you figure out a path forward after high school. What can we do in high school to help you gain employment skills? What can we do to help you achieve your goals? So in school, my son would leave high school and he would go to Home Depot and help water flowers or sweep up, or he went to the Smiths program. There were all these things that they did through his IEP, and when we had our IEP meeting, we would have the vocational rehabilitation counselor come to our IEP meeting so that they could be part of these decisions and discussions with us. And also learn to be a self-advocate in your own meetings. If you don't like what they're talking about, this is your IEP. You can have a voice and say, you know what, that doesn't sound awesome to me. I would rather do this. On your IEP, there are the high school goals that you can have, your individualized goals, and then also your student-focused goals, which is like academics and training, employment, and all of these things can be covered in the IEP. Okay, so some of you are done with school or close to being done with school, right? So what's next? How do we navigate all of this after high school? So working with your school counselors when you're still in high school, they can help point you in the right direction. College, there's a disability office in each college. I know that Tierney, she's my friend when she lived in Utah from a long time ago. She has a son who is looking to possibly go to one of the Utah college programs. So even if he doesn't get in, if he wanted to go to like Salt Lake Community College, every single college has a disability office, so you can talk with them. You would want to take your current IEP with you to the school so that you can make them aware of the services that you might need. And also, one thing that was important for me is if you're a senior in high school, make sure your neuropsych evaluation is updated so that so one, you don't have to pay for it, and two, so that you have all of that information that you can pass along to your college or to your vocational program or whatever program you want to be involved in. I quickly want to just show you what's available because you're able to come back to Utah and utilize these programs if your state doesn't have one. But Utah State University is located up in Logan, Utah. It's just north of here, about an hour, and they have Aggies Elevated. Utah State University, opening in Price, opens this fall, and it's Aggies Elevated Eastern, and then also Wolverines Elevated at Utah Valley University in Orem. And these are all great programs. There's also things like at Weber State, where I went, there's the Cat Tracks program, and a lot of other programs have, like the University of Utah has classes that you can audit. Just be creative as you're looking at what's after high school. You know, you don't just have to stay home if you don't want to. If you want to get out into the community, call the school that's close to you and say, what's available to me? What are some programs that I could take for either credit or audit purposes? Another thing that's important to realize with transition is when you were in public school, you had all of these special education services, and that was through your entitlement program. But now, as you're moving out of school, it's more of an eligibility-based adult services program. So now they're looking more at the disability. What services do you need in your life to be successful? How can we get these services for you? And some of them are you qualify for based upon your disability. So let's talk about daily life skills. Everybody's in a different space, right? My son has this rare chromosome duplication and also autism. He's awesome at some things, but other things like remembering to wear deodorant is still hard for him. So even though he can go to this awesome job and earn all this money and pay for a lot of his own things, there's some things I still have to remind him about. So just take a minute and imagine yourself at home. You're laying in your bed and it's a brand new day. What does your day look like? Are you getting yourself up, or does your mom get you up? Do you have somewhere to go, or do you have zero plans for the day? Are you able to get your own breakfast? Are you able to do your own laundry? Are you able to help call for transportation? Like my son has a transportation service. He's not able to do that right now. And so these are all goals that we have for him, that he can learn to do some of these things by himself. When he was 14, I just thought, I don't know if we're ever going to get to this point. And you might be frustrated too. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do that. But you know what? Each year he's gained so much progress and he's been able to move forward. And so it's so exciting to see what you're able to accomplish and these goals that you never thought you would be able to do before. So here's a few: laundry, shopping, cooking, cleaning. How many of you like to clean toilets? Is that your favorite thing? Hygiene. Are you able to go to McDonald's by yourself if you have one down the street from your house? Budgeting. If you have a job, how many of you have a job? Just Dad? Some people have jobs. Are you able to budget your money? Do you want a job if you don't have one? Do you think it'd be awesome to work at a pet store or, in an office or at McDonald's? Like, what do you want for your life? Transportation, are you able to figure out rides for yourself, or do you need to wait for mom to come home from work? Here's a few tools that can help you. There's social stories. If something isn't making sense, like because my son has autism, something is set in his brain and he's really rigid and he can't figure out how to think about it in a different way. And so if I use a social story, it's able to help him think about things from another person's perspective instead of like, no, this is how it has to be, Mom. Video modeling, you can watch YouTube videos on it. Picture schedules, we used those for about 10 years with my son. He needed pictures because the way his brain worked, he needed to see the picture in order to check it off his list. So do it. Do what works for you. Calendars, planners, smartphones are awesome because it has so many tools that were not available. Look for the apps. Talk to your friends that have epilepsy. Figure out what's working for them. Figure out, you know what, I'm having this problem in my life. What tools do you use for that in your life? Network. It's awesome because the smartest thing you can do in life is ask for help. That's the most genius thing you can do because nobody has it all figured out. You look at your mom, you look at your dad, and you think they have it all figured out because they are helping to run my life, right? They don't. They're figuring it out every day just like you are. So ask for help and ask for those things that you need to help you get on the right path and move forward. Okay, let's talk about safety. What safety measures are in place in your home? We live in kind of a crazy world, you guys. Like, it's awesome. I love technology. I love all of the things that are advancements in our world. There's so many good people in this world doing awesome things. But unfortunately, there's also a few crazy people that are gonna do bad things, right? So as an individual and you're online, how many of you have your own smartphone? Everybody almost? Yeah. So my son has his own phone. He's online in Discord. Is it called Discord? See, I don't even know the real, I'm like, is it Discourse or Discord? So he has his chat thing that he's doing. He plays Autcraft, which is like Minecraft for autism. He loves it. He's on there every day. How can I help keep him safe? So here's a few ideas. Set up parental controls. And as a teen, you guys might be like, I don't want my mom or my dad looking at my texts or on my phone. But talk with your parents. And this is one thing that they might be aware of, is what's out there that might be people who don't have the best intentions for you. They might want to take advantage of you. So my son, he has about $13,000 sitting in his bank account from his McDonald's money. And like I said, he just spends it on Slurpees and things. So if he has a best friend at work who wants to be his best friend and use his money and his debit card every once in a while, that's a danger for Jackson. And so I've had to put some controls on his bank account that he's aware of, so he can use his debit card anytime he wants, and he has codes he can use, but there's other sources I can put on his bank account so that I can have access to it, I can monitor it, and we can get in touch with the bank the minute things happen. At our bank, we bank with this bank here called America First Credit Union. It's a big bank in Utah. They have a thing called Card Guard. And so I've activated that on the account, and I have an Apple Watch. Every time that card is used, I get a notification right then, McDonald's 765, and I can watch those things come through so that I can help monitor those accounts. Review information with your parents. Make sure they have your password so that they can get in there and access it. If people are texting you, don't be embarrassed about it. Show your parents the text. Show your parents things that come through your account. If people are saying weird things on Discord, or if they're messaging you, if you have your own Facebook account, show your parents, because there's people that message me weird things every day. So you don't need to be afraid of it. This is your chance to really have good communication with parents. And as a parent, if I receive these communications from my son and I just can be calm and not freak out about it, we can have really good productive conversations instead of, oh my gosh, this is why you shouldn't have Facebook. That doesn't help anybody. We have to teach our kids how to navigate this world. And every family is going to have their own guidelines of what's going to be safe for their family. And so that's perfectly okay. But to talk about it with a family is really the best thing. So know your rights, know what's okay, talk about what laws are with your parents. What are the best practices with sending pictures on my cell phone? If people ask me to send them pictures, what should I send? Who should I send those to? What's not okay? What do I need to report? When should I share my address with people? When should I share personal information like my birthday with people? Also in social situations, a lot of people have community groups that they get to go hang out in. It's really good to talk about touching and understanding what's okay as far as when should I hold hands with somebody? When is it okay to kiss somebody? What if somebody kisses me that I don't want to have kiss me? What should I do? Who can I talk to? Who's safe? What if my teacher says something that makes me feel uncomfortable? What if one of the day program workers says something that makes me feel uncomfortable? These are all kinds of questions and thoughts that are okay to share, because everybody in this world has to navigate those things every day. I've worked in a lot of jobs where things have been said to me that are not okay. And so it's okay to have those conversations. Interactions with emergency responders. So again, my son has autism, and so he is not very comfortable around first responders, so like police people. And he has a lot of behavioral issues. And so it would not be uncommon for him to get mad because I asked him to unload the dishwasher, and he would run out of my house and run down the street. And so if somebody who didn't know Jackson called the police because they didn't understand what was happening with Jackson, and then the police tried to talk to him, Jackson would probably get really aggressive with the police. And so this probably isn't the situation for any of you, but we have this slide up because based upon the needs that you have, maybe you have a lot of medical needs where maybe you have a device that you can push if you feel like you're not going to be healthy at that minute and you need medical attention. Maybe you need a quick way to contact first responders for your area. What we've done is we've contacted the Layton police. They now have Jackson in their system. They know that he works at McDonald's. They know our address. They know our phone number. And for us, we felt very, very good about sharing that information. For other people, that's not the right choice for them, and that's something that they haven't wanted to share. But think about how you specifically can build a relationship with the first responders in your area if you were ever to need medical attention, and that's something that might be concerning for you or maybe give you anxiety or stress. Guarding against abuse, we need to learn about all the types of abuse. Is it okay for somebody to call you stupid or to say that you just are an idiot and you shouldn't work here because you don't understand? That's called verbal abuse, and all of those things are not okay. Everybody needs to treat everybody else with respect. And that's one of the signs of abuse. Of course, there's physical abuse or sexual abuse, grabbing or touching or doing things that are inappropriate. But if you're not sure what some of these things are, it's really good to have these conversations with a trusted adult and with somebody in your life that you want to talk about these things with. Because sometimes mom and dad just think that you get it and you know. And maybe you know a little bit, but maybe you want to have a bigger conversation with them and understand more about how this world works and some of the people in it. And using social stories, parents too, has been a really good tool for teaching these tools. Okay, employment. So finding the right fit. There are a lot of choices for employment. Let's see, we have one person with a job coach. Was there anybody else besides Dad that had a job? How many? Right here, she has a job. Okay, 2. How many of you want a job? Are you guys living like the best life and you have no desire to have a job? You want a job? I have a job. Oh, you have a job. Awesome. Okay. And you have a job? You want to. Okay. Do you have ideas about what you want to do?
I want to be a musician.
Oh, I love that. Do you play an instrument right now?
I play 4.
Oh my gosh, you're super talented.
Thank you.
So like if you worked at a music store, would that be exciting every day to go to the music store? Okay, so if you got in touch with your vocational rehab counselor in your area, it's called VR for short, and you talked about one of these options for you, he could help you he could help try to make a connection for you with the music store. So there's things called career exploration, internships. Maybe that would be a good fit because they would let you come in, sort music, unpack the Amazon boxes, whatever it was, maybe eventually learn how to check people out at the register. But there's all of these different options. And so VR is going to be your ticket to try to help find that self-employment or the employment option. The other thing as parents is a lot of parents of kids with chronic health issues or disabilities, they actually have to be really proactive and find the job for the youth. And so that's what I did with Lagoon and with McDonald's. And so by the time VR came along, they were just there to support us in our efforts and to report back to the school on how things were going. But I went into McDonald's one day and asked Sal, the manager, hey, I saw the sign out on the marquee, you guys are hiring, this is our situation, would this be something that you would be interested in? And Sal said, sure, have Jackson come in and interview for the position. And Sal started asking Jackson questions in the interview, and Jackson did his best because he has the articulation disability where it's hard for him to answer the questions. And then at some point I had to come in and kind of help with all of the fine-tuning to see if Jackson would be a good fit. And you know what? The manager wants to make Jackson an assistant manager of McDonald's because with his autism, he is just right there, never misses. Oh, he's like so fast. And it's so funny when we go through the drive-thru and he knows it's us and I just want my Diet Coke, he uses his whole spiel. Okay, so that was a large Diet Coke, it's just so awesome to see him excelling. And so don't limit yourself. You want to do music, do it. Let's find a way to have you work in a music store through one of these VR programs. How many of you know what PREETS is? So it's pre-employment training services. Was there a hand over here?
Yeah, we use that right now.
Good, okay. So one of the great tools that I just put into your schedule, what is it called?
SCED app.
The SCED app. So I've uploaded both books for you, the Choices book for parents and the Youth book for the kids, and then also the daily living skills, so you can go through and identify all of these skills that you have now, check that puppy off, or if you don't have that skill and it sounds hard, circle it and say, Mom, we need to work on this. Dad, we need to work on this. Or IEP coach, we need to work on this. And all of those skills are actually what parents have said has helped their kids be the most successful in a college program like Aggie's Elevated. So if your child or if you can do all of those things, but you know what? I looked at that and I'm like, oh, I could probably work on that. Don't feel like you have to have all of them because all of us have goals that we need to work on in our life. So the VR people will help you identify all of these things, but the pre-employment services are key, and that's what you need to be doing in high school, working with your IEP team. If you don't have vocational rehabilitation goals on your IEP, ask them about it, because teachers are doing their best. They have a huge caseload. Some of them have more training than others. Some of them are just trying to get up to speed. Maybe it's their first year. Maybe they're not familiar with all of the things available in your state. But take your book to your IEP meeting and go through it with them and figure out what pieces are missing for you. We're going to jump through a couple of these because we've talked about them. And just for time. Supported employment is another one. It's where you're working with your disability agency or VR in your state to figure out the best option for you. And then customized employment. Maybe you just want to learn a certain piece of a job. So maybe they can customize it and fit your specific situation. Maybe you can only work during certain hours, or maybe this piece of the job is really easy for you, but this piece of the job is really hard for you. Customize it. Have your VR counselor work with you and figure out how it's going to be best for you. Social Security. So there is a point where I have to figure out Jackson and Social Security. Because of our situation in life, I've never gotten him on government programs. We've just kind of always done it and just figured it out. But when he turns 26, he's going to be off my insurance, and so I need to figure it out. I need to figure out Medicaid. How many of you did you say were already on Medicaid? You guys have already done it. You're awesome. But even as like 2021, I still am working through issues like guardianship, because it's an emotional issue as a parent. You're trying to figure out, okay, which piece of life can Jackson navigate by himself? Which piece of life does he want to navigate by himself? And which piece as a parent do I need to navigate? And so as a parent, it's just emotional, because you think you're going to be somewhere and then you end up in a different spot. And the other spot is beautiful, but it's still different than what you thought it would be. And so SSI and Medicaid and guardianship have been like that for me as a mom. But one of the things that I've had to figure out with SSI specifically is how can Jackson work but not lose his SSI benefits? And so there's a lot of programs in each state. In our state, it's called UWIPS, and they help you figure out how much Jackson can work. Once I have SSI for him, then I can charge him room and board, and he can pay Social Security to me each month so that that doesn't count against him, so that he can keep earning money. Is this all things you guys know, or is any of this new information? It's new? Okay. I just don't want to be telling everyone everything you already know. And so don't be afraid of Social Security. That choices booklet that I put in the link for you, it's, like I said, it's huge. It's 100 pages, but it walks you through. It has even charts in there that says how much you can earn, how much you can work. It's resources for you to call agencies to help you figure out that gap, so that you can tap into these benefits that you deserve, that you are entitled to. I had one friend say, well, I don't want to do that because we can just figure it out and we'll be okay. But Jackson's entitled to those resources to help him be more successful in life. He has 3 other siblings. All those siblings have moved out of the house, and they are navigating their life, and they're trying to do all the things that they need to do with school and with work. So these supports that are available to you, you're entitled to help you be as successful as possible in your life. So don't feel bad about trying to tap into those, or that it's too complicated. There's coaches out there that really want to help you navigate these resources if you need that help. How many of you know the difference between SSI and SSDI? These were new terms for me. So Social Security, and then the Social Security work credits, the SSDI. So when I go to apply for Social Security for Jackson, they're going to look at work credits first, either if he has work credits himself, which he does with his job, or if I was retired and they pulled my work credits. So once they evaluate that, then I'm going to receive a letter, and it will either say you're approved for SSDI or you will be rejected from that. And people get that letter and they think, oh my gosh, I didn't qualify. But what they're saying is your parent doesn't have any work credits, so we're just going to give you SSI by yourself. So don't let those terms or those letters that you get in the mail confuse you. If they do confuse you, Every state in America has a parent training and information center. Just Google Colorado Parent Training and Information Center, or Oregon, or wherever you're from, or Texas. And they can help you understand some of these questions and point you in the right direction. If you're from Utah, call us and we'll help you navigate it. And we'll even help you figure out what to change to make your application better so that it's easier to get approved. A Social Security representative payee, that's usually your parent. That's the person that's helping you navigate your Social Security, or it could be another trusted adult that you set up. It's just the person who's helping you control that money. So what happens if I have Social Security right now and I'm about to turn 18 and you're a self-advocate? Do I lose my Social Security? No, what will happen is the Social Security agency looks at your situation and figures out what they need to do, and then you're moved over to the adult program.
I thought you had to reapply.
Let's see. It says that a redetermination process begins after the individual turns 18. The Social Security Administration will review your child's eligibility for continued SSI benefits based on the disability rules for adults, including non-medical eligibility rules, which is income, resources, and residency. Right now, when Jackson was younger, it would be based on my income as an adult. Once he's 18, it's based on his own income. During the review, the SSA will send a letter to ask for the following information about the individual's disability: names of any medicines, hospital stays, surgery, all of that, and then it starts the process. So you won't just be dropped off. So yes, you're right, you have to be involved in the process and apply, but it's triggered in the system. And if it's not, and you're approaching 18 and you haven't received that redetermination letter, reach out to them. And then we've talked a little bit about this, the living and work arrangements. If you are just living at your parents' home and you're not paying them room and board, it's going to lower probably the amount that you're going to get. So you really want to work with somebody to figure out how you can maximize your Social Security benefits. And again, this is all in the choices booklet. I wish we had more time to go through all of this. This is just like a little taste test of all of these things. These are those programs I've talked about. The Social Security work incentives, they want you to be successful. They want you to be able to work and get out into the community. So tap into them and work with the agencies in your state. The student income earned exclusion, you can be a student and receive these services. The PASS program, are all of these new terms for a lot of you? The Ticket to Work program, the ePass, which is going to help you with your employment-related expenses. And then also one thing with employment is soft skills. This is huge. So a hard skill is like, learning how to run the computer, learning how to stock the shelf. But what about these soft skills? Are you self-motivated? Are you organized? Are you able to show up to work on time? These are things that you can work at when you're 12 and 13 years old, and you can learn these skills. Independent living centers in your state, this is another great resource to be able to tap into, especially after high school. These are centers that have resources right in the center, outings, services to help you learn life skills.
Is this the same thing as CIL?
It might be. In Utah, they're called independent living centers.
Some states call this Center for Independent Living. Yeah.
Yeah. In Utah, we have the assistive technology program, so that if people need speech to text or other services with technology, adaptations for wheelchairs or their home, or you just tell them the problem that you're having and they'll figure out a solution to help you with it, which will be great if you have a problem with mobility or any physical disability that's going to limit your ability to work. The assistive technology program, or anything else really, tell them your problem and see if they can figure it out with technology. And then also the job accommodation network. Disclosing disability, we talked a little bit about this. I have one quick story. My little niece, she was adopted from China, and she's lost vision in one of her eyes because of a birth defect. She also has a lot of processing disorders, and so she saw Jackson get a job at McDonald's, and she wanted a job at McDonald's. She's been in general education, except pulled out for a few services with resource-type environments, so no indication that she would not be able to work at McDonald's. And she got in there, and it was just too fast-paced for her. So where Jackson's brain, even though his disabilities are more significant, he's able to laser in and focus, and it was just too overwhelming for her. but she didn't understand if she would disclose to her employer about her disability that they would be required by law to try to provide accommodations for them. So don't be afraid of sharing your disability with people, because everybody wants to see you successful and they want to try to figure out a way to make a job work for you. And if you're having challenges about, well, Mom, how do I talk to people about epilepsy, or how do I talk to people about the way that my brain works, or the way that it's wired, or a physical disability, or that I don't want to take food out across the parking lot because of my mobility issues, that's scary. If you can figure out ways to talk about your disability and disclose that, then accommodations can be provided, which will help you be more successful. This is a very personal decision. You don't have to disclose your disability. Maybe you feel worried about being treated differently, or maybe you don't want people to know that you have a disability. You have to figure out what's going to be best for you. Is it better to disclose it to my manager and figure it out, and then they have to keep that confidential, and then I'm able to work, or is it better for me to do something else? So those are personal decisions that you have to decide in your life. We're out of time, but in the choices book is all of these next slides that are like supported decision making. How many of you know what supported decision making is? So there's a lot of options as to put safeguards in for people, whether it's conservatorship, guardianship, power of attorney, or supported decision making. And so I would encourage you to go through that choices booklet. It's the entire red section, and understand what options are available. Because a lot of people, they get to 18 and they realize at that first IEP meeting when your child turns 18, you don't really even get invited unless the school's gonna be on board. And so you don't have to do guardianship. They'll talk about it. But with Jackson, he can do a lot of things by himself. So maybe I'll do power of attorney in these areas instead of a full guardianship or a limited guardianship. So go through the booklet and see what jumps out to you. I'm happy to answer questions. You can call me. You can call the Utah Parent Center and just say, you really didn't get into this in your presentation because of time. I really would like more information on it. And even though you're in a different state, I can connect you with things that will help you. So we have 8 minutes. Are there questions? Is there something you want me to talk a little bit more about? Or anything that I just skimmed too quickly, totally overwhelming, or do you feel like the fire hose was just